The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
BronxNet. Your voice, your views, your vision.
Good evening and welcome to BronxTalk, now in its 17th year, one of the city's longest running TV talk shows. We're on tape tonight, so no phone calls, but if you'd like to speak with our guest on TV, then make sure to catch his regular appearances on News 12. But you can also email comments or questions to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. We're thrilled to have with us for his umpteenth appearance on BronxTalk, Borough President of the Bronx, the Honorable Ruben Diaz Jr. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gary. As always, it's a pleasure to be here. I hope you had a wonderful and peaceful Easter and happy Passover to everyone. I know that everyone is back to work and back to school now.
And that's why we have you here, ready to roll up our sleeves. Obviously, the biggest news of the day is not specifically Bronx news, but Osama bin Laden has been killed by United States Special Forces. I thought before we got into Bronx issues, if you have a statement or something you'd like to say about it, we'll give you a chance to do that.
We put out a statement. I mean, look, this is long overdue. We know that Osama bin Laden has taken credit for what happened in 9/11, the most horrific attack on the soil of this nation and this nation's history. Many folks were wondering in the last administration when we were going to get Osama bin Laden. Finally, we've been able to do it. I want to commend the president, this administration, the men and women in uniform who have been fighting wars for over the last decade, those who are responsible for actually putting to end this symbol of evil. This gentleman who has been the leader of the Al-Qaeda, and so we're just so happy that the earth has been rid of this terrible figure.
We could go on and I could ask you more, but I really want to get into Bronx issues, and that's why you came here. So let's just get started with the same issue that we've talked about at the top of every show you've been on over the last year and a half, and that is the Kingsbridge Armory. You said it would be spring. Spring is here. Spring is getting along. Do we know when you will make an announcement, and what would be the content of the announcement about a proposal for the Kingsbridge Armory?
Spring is here. Spring hasn't finished yet. And what we wanted to do, and I know we'll talk a little bit about it, we wanted to concentrate on Bronx Week, which starts May 12th through the 22nd. But certainly we have been meeting with our task force. We've been meeting with NYU's capstone program. We're in the process of drafting our recommendations. And right after Bronx Week, stay tuned. We'll come with our recommendations. I was so happy to hear last week we were at a press conference dealing with the Milbank portfolio in the Bronx. The mayor was there. Christine Quinn was there. During this Q&A, the mayor said he would be open-minded to any good ideas in terms of moving forward with the Kingsbridge Armory. And so we believe we're going to have strong recommendations, and we're going to offer them to the city of New York, to the mayor, and hopefully we can all come together and eventually see the redevelopment of this armory. You
have said in your State of the Borough address, healthcare, cultural and educational institutions, the film industry. You've mentioned Kaufman Astoria and Silver Cup as having interest. New York Arena Management wants to convert part of it into a sports arena. The YMCA has contacted you. What can you tell us? Give us a little something. Any ideas? Are any of these going to be involved? Give us a little bit more than we've gotten over the last 6 or 8 months.
You have to stay tuned. That's another show,
I'm
Gary.
trying.
You're trying here, but look, even Creflo Dollar is interested in making it into one of his big mega churches. What we're going to do is we're going to put out different combinations in our recommendations, and we'll see. I mean, we're still speaking to folks that are interested. When you look at the film industry, every single major film studio in the city of New York, whether it's Silver Cup, Steiner Studios, all of them, they've all been interested. We know that they've been able to work wonders in different communities like in Astoria, in the city of New York. And here in the Bronx, we've been suffering from not having our fair share of the film industry here. I mean, we were happy to see Will Smith do film Men in Black 3 not so long ago, and when we come out with our report, we're going to see that there are different options that we have. There's so much interest. You know, when folks say that there is not interest in the Armory, you're going to see that that's a farce.
You have taken an immense amount of criticism in many different circles, and people say that this was a way of squelching business in the Bronx. The blogs that refer to the Bronx are just all over the place with saying, you know what, Ruben Diaz Jr. turned down jobs. This was a foolish thing. Where's his plan? This was a signal to the business community that the Bronx is not open for business. There are other business people who say, you know what? I know business people who say, because he did this, we would never do business with the Bronx. Is that a lingering problem for you, and do you see real evidence of those allegations coming to play?
For those people who make those claims, I say that that's totally ridiculous. When you look at what we've been doing over the last 12 months with the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, lending out over $30 million or giving out in loans and grants. When you look at what we've did, for instance, at Jetro, which is a huge produce distributor out of Hunts Point, we were able to get them $25 million out of their $50 million investment in Hunts Point. The fact that we've been able to assist in one way, shape, or form 700 businesses, both large and small. And when you look at the people who say, well, folks are, they're not interested in the Bronx, well, tell that to all of the folks who came and presented in front of our task force just for the Armory alone. I think we've made tremendous strides here. What the Armory was about was more than just the living wage. It was also about keeping the integrity of the businesses on Fordham Road. Could you imagine that many of the stores would have been closed down because of the competition of a new retail center mall just one train station away? Then folks would have been criticizing me for supporting a mall and yet having boarded up storefronts on Fordham Road. What would have happened to those jobs? And in fact, those jobs would have been lost and businesses would have been lost at Fordham Road with taxpayer dollars, with their tax dollars that would have been used to their own demise. And so what we were saying with the Kingsbridge Armory is we want people to do business, but if you're going to do business, if you want charity, you have to be charitable. You have to do it with the Bronx. You have to pay a living wage if you're going to get taxpayer dollars. And so far, we've been moving forward on the Armory. We've been moving forward with other businesses. We've been moving forward with a living wage bill in the City Council. And
so just the Armory, the timing on the Armory, it sounds like Bronx Week will end.
We're in the first
beginning of June.
In the first week before summer hits. Summer is the third week of June before summer hits.
Despite your enthusiasm and claiming some accomplishments as far as business goes, Stella D'Oro has gone out of the Bronx, Old London has gone out of the Bronx, and very lately Bazzini left the Bronx. And in fact, an editorial said, you know what? This is all connected to the fact that the Armory was not developed and Ruben Diaz Jr. turned down the deal at the Armory. So despite your enthusiasm, the Bronx did lose jobs and did lose those companies.
People need to realize that there is a motive by some of the editorial boards who work closely with the administration of the City of New York. The reality is, Gary, that in all three events, there are things that contribute to that are out of the borough president's hands. For instance, Stella D'Oro made the decision to move down south to a right-to-work state. And so did Old London before I became the borough president. Why? Because they don't have to pay wages for labor. They don't have to pay organized labor wages. The state of New York is a state where we have unions here, and rightfully so. Those are the same editorial boards and some of the same individuals who want us to go back to the sweatshop days. We believe in organized labor here. We believe in support union labor here. And those institutions, unfortunately, went to states that where you don't have to have unionized labor. In terms of Bazzini, and it was stated clearly by the owners of Bazzini that they had to go to Pennsylvania because of a new federal law where the Food and Drug Administration has certain standards that they are not able to afford here in their plant in Hunts Point. And so they have a new plant that is already retrofitted to be able to comply with the new federal statute or the new federal mandate by the Obama administration. Well, those individuals who are saying, why did we let Bazzini go? Well, maybe the city and the state of New York should have been able to give them the $30–40 million they needed to retrofit their plant here. But nonetheless, not the entire outfit of Bazzini's leaving, just half of it in the Bronx, and they're working where they already have the new equipment.
Along the same lines.
So to be clear, that was not Borough President Diaz's fault at all.
Along the similar lines, there was an undercurrent of discussion about Hunts Point and the Hunts Point food market leaving the Bronx and going to New Jersey. We know that New Jersey is wooing them. This thought, for me as a Bronxite, and I'm sure for many people who are watching us, would say that would be an economic disaster in a place that can ill afford it. Why is the Hunts Point food market right on the edge here? One would think it would be one of the most secure industries in the Bronx because of its importance.
Absolutely, and the folks at the produce market will be the first to tell you that their biggest champion is Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. That I've been championing their cause. Remember that I was the assemblyman in the area. I've been working with them for many years, and the reality is that they feed over 60% of the tri-state area. While we're sleeping, they're out there feeding the tri-state area, putting out foods.
So why is this?
Because of the negotiations between them and, ironically, the city of New York. So Mayor Bloomberg. And to his credit, and Seth Pinsky from the EDC, they've been at the table, but there have been differences in whether or not how much money the city's going to put in terms of capital, how much the produce market is going to have, the folks at the produce market are going to have to pay in terms of paying for the mortgage for the new facility, whether or not there should be land ownership, and I think that there should be. These are some of the things that they're being offered by New Jersey. We should not take the threat of New Jersey coming in lightly. I've been speaking directly with both U.S. Senators, Chuck Schumer, Gillibrand, the governor of the state of New York, and I have had several conversations on this issue. The mayor and I have spoken on this issue. Nobody wants the produce market to leave. When it's all said and done, they're going to wind up staying in New York City. But the city has to come with a right offer for them in terms of how much they are expecting for them to pay and whether or not it's worth their while if they're not the owners right now, if they're just tenants.
We can come up with a good enough deal to keep them here. You're saying we can.
We will.
During your State of the Borough address, you talked about a hotel near Yankee Stadium, a dream of a hotel in the Bronx. You're not the first to have suggested it. One of the questions that has come up about one of the potential locations, because you talked about using a garage that may not be used as much, is that's on parkland. And is that really what we want to do with our parkland, especially if there's a chance to get it back? Why not convert it to parkland and find another place for a hotel?
Well, remember that when you look at that whole area and that portfolio, so to speak, that is managed by the Bronx Parking Company, there are several sites that are used for garages now and parking that can continue to be used for park. And if you look at that area, if you look at the Bronx, if you look at how is it that we can stimulate the economy, I believe that one of those garages can be used for a 200 to 300 bedroom hotel. Could you imagine with a conference center? This is a way for us to keep people who come to either Yankee games, over 4 million a year, people who come to our concerts, our bowl games. We're losing out. These are folks that are just doing a hit and run. They're coming in one event and they're leaving. I went to the Jay-Z and Eminem concert with my son. They were there for a couple of nights. You have over 50,000 people from all over who are coming in and not really benefiting from the other amenities, our restaurants, golf courses, our beaches. This is a way for us to provide hundreds, if not 1,000 jobs at the hotel, but also stimulate the local economy through tourism.
Nobody could argue the benefit of a hotel. I just want to go back to my question. So it doesn't bother you or concern you that it might be on land that is actually mapped as parkland?
We've been working on that, but the reality is, Gary, that we right now currently, once the Heritage Field ball fields are done, we're going to ultimately have the equivalent, if not more, parkland than we had before the stadium was put up. And again, if we're going to dissolve because they're already digging into their reserves, if we're going to dissolve the existing portfolio of parking spaces, we can have that added parkland and still have a hotel where Bronxites can still benefit from Mill Pond Park. They can benefit from the parks on top of the garages, the new garages, from Heritage Field, and all of the other things. But I think that that's an ideal location for a hotel.
Speaking of parkland,
and we by the way, and so do many people. We've had so much interest from developers to operators. People really want to come in. People who understand that you have to have deep pockets to do it, and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. Once again, folks know that the Bronx is open for business.
Do you have timing of when you think, or now it's really just a matter of navigating the waters of putting this together?
Well, as you said, this has been kicked around for decades. Right now, we have to see what's happening this month with the Bronx parking garage. Unfortunately, it's 60% vacant during home games. They're only, when the board voted, their solution was to increase the amount of fees on the parking. I don't think that's going to pan out well. They're already digging into their reserves. This could be a win-win for so many people, for the city of New York, because they have to find a way to pay the bondholders a rate for their investment. There's a way for us to stimulate the local economy and bring business into the area. I think everyone can win here.
Speaking of parkland, there's a growing controversy in the North Bronx about the proposal for a ice skating rink. The mayor announced it during his State of the City address. Yet people are saying, you know what, we don't have enough input. And there may be aspects of this that are very disturbing to either people in the community, whether it be handball players or others who are concerned about parkland, or people in the neighborhood. I mean, there are many, many issues. What's your thought about this skating rink?
Conceptually, I'm all in favor of an ice skating rink. I think it would be great. It would help during the holiday season in the winter months for us to have something. I know that many Bronxites have to go to other areas to go ice skating. Why not have one here in the Bronx? In Van Cortlandt, I know that there are different personalities that are on either side of the debate, and sometimes personalities can cloud a policy issue. Certainly, when we are doing things in the Bronx from now on, whether it's the community board, local elected officials, the borough president, Congress members, we want a direct input. We want to be able to have a say-so as to what's happening in our borough. And so, look, there's a lot of politics that's going on, but conceptually, when it's all said and done, I would love to see an ice skating rink in our borough.
But you would like to have input, or you'd like the communities to have input?
The community board and the local elected officials, absolutely.
Is this a runaway freight train, and what are you going to have to do to stop it at this point, or we don't know yet?
We're still in conversations, and look, I'm an optimist. I don't believe that anything is a done deal. I think that the city is starting to realize that we speak in one voice. For the first time in a very long time, people are seeing the political leadership in our borough speaking in one voice, and they're taking us seriously. And so we keep calling them back. The community board keeps calling the Parks Department back into the table, and ultimately there's questions that have to be answered if we want to move forward.
I want to shift gears a little bit to an issue that we've discussed before, and is certainly out there. I hear it from many of your constituents. It appears that Governor Cuomo is going to make a strong play to legalize gay marriage. While you have made your position clear, LGBT groups in the Bronx have put you together with your father, who is, of course, a strident opponent. Is this a difficult issue for you to deal with? And at some point, would you be able to make a very obvious and vocal stand in support of legalizing gay marriage, despite the fact that obviously somebody very close to you is one of the largest opponents maybe in the nation?
It's something that I deal with all the time. My vote in 2007 was one of the strongest, probably the toughest vote that I've ever had to take. I struggle with it because obviously there's my dad, and there's an upbringing, and the church that I grew up with. And at the same time, there are so many people who are friends and family. My chief of staff, my niece. These are folks that I want them to be as happy. I want them to have, all of the rights that I have. And so this is something that I struggle with all the time. This is a conversation that is ongoing. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finalize that thought process on your show here tonight.
Okay, but your position is unchanged. And I guess we do appreciate your honesty in talking about.
I have a record on the vote that I took on 2007, and that still remains my position.
Kathy Black was resigned as a chancellor, and now Dennis Walcott is the chancellor of the city's schools. While maybe the tenor is a little different coming out of the Department of Ed and the chancellor's office, I don't know that any of the policies of Mayor Bloomberg and the Department of Ed have changed. What's your thought about this new chancellor, and what would you like to see him undertake as regards Bronx schools?
Well, Kathy Black never really had a chance, especially the way she was introduced. To her credit, she reached out to us, and we met. I met with her for over an hour and a half. I wish her well. In terms of Dennis Walcott, everyone knows Dennis Walcott. He's someone who's always been accessible as Deputy Mayor of Education. He's likable. But at the same time, when it's all said and done, we are going to continue to hold his feet to the fire. We're going to continue to have conversations with him.
Give me an example.
For instance,
what's on your mind?
Just basic capital improvements to our schools. School closures. Why is it that we see more and more school closures in our borough? How is it that we're going to deal with those phase-outs if we're not going to be able to provide the adequate support for our students? Recreational activities. What do we do with our tests, our reading scores and our math scores that we know were a farce a couple of years ago? English as a second language, bilingual classes. We're seeing more and more of our students coming from other countries, and yet we're seeing less and less programs in our schools. At the same time, we see a lot of our students doing well. What are we going to do with gifted and talented programs? Why is it that we don't have enough of them in our borough? Why so many of our children are going to other schools in other boroughs for gifted and talented? Why is it that when you look at Bronx High School of Science, less than 10% of the population there are actual Bronx kids? So these are all things that we obviously spoke with Joe Klein. We started the conversation with Kathy Black. We're going to continue the conversation with
And you anticipate being able to have a dialogue with Dennis Walcott about those things?
I think that if you look at the Chancellor Klein and I bumped heads a lot. Kathy Black and I never really got the chance to get to continue to know each other. So if you look at the three chancellors now, I think that the best opportunity, the one where I have the best relationship with, is Dennis Walcott.
You referred to the conversion of the Millbank properties to someone named Steve Finkelstein. Some of the blogs have said, you know what, he doesn't have the kind of track record that he would be more of a solution rather than still be part of the problem. How was he chosen? What are your hopes for these properties?
Well, that's not so. If you look at Stephen Finkelstein, he owns over 30 properties already in the Bronx. So I think people need to realize that, and obviously we've done our homework on those properties, and they for the most part, he's been dealing with all of the violations. And if you look at the site where we were at last week, and to the mayor's credit, the mayor and I, we bump heads and I point fingers at the mayor, but to the mayor's credit and Speaker Quinn, they've been on this issue, and to all the local elected officials, and we have to commend the community and the residents for not giving up. What we would like to see in these properties is what you and I have, Gary, and that's basically a place where you and I and our wives and our children could rest their heads at night and not have rodentia and not have holes in the ceiling and have heat in the winter and just have the basic amenities that we all enjoy.
Do you anticipate doing this process in other places with other properties in the Bronx?
Absolutely. It wasn't just the Millbank portfolio. We have the Ocelot portfolio. We've been dealing with not only Mr. Finkelstein, but other folks who are interested. Again, the way we're doing it is that the banks are now own these properties. They're not into managing property. They don't know how to do that, and that's why they've fallen into disarray. We're going to continue to work with the Speaker of the City Council. We're going to continue to work with the Mayor and the City of New York, with HPD, with the local elected officials, with residents. We're going to identify these, and when people are making a bid to take over the mortgage or take over the note from the banks, we're going to make sure that the bank is not just interested in profits. They're going to wind up choosing individuals or entities that will go in there and really change it. With Mr. Finkelstein, we've already saw that there were new windows and they've done bathrooms over in that building that we were in. So, and he says that he's going to wind up doing, instead of the 9 months that he's being given, he's going to wind up doing a great deal of the repairs and reduction of the violations in the next 2 or 3 months. So we're happy to hear that.
Not too far from where we're sitting is the Jerome Park Reservoir, although it doesn't look like a reservoir at this point. A lot of talk of late, and probably it's going to continue, about access to the reservoir, because something would need to be done to allow people to get closer to ultimately what is put back in and the water that's put back in. What's your thoughts about access? And I know the Facilities Monitoring Committee is looking at you to exercise some leadership here. So what's your vision of what should be at the reservoir?
So, the community has been vocal about this, and obviously we want access. What we want, however, is to have that agreement with the city before the monitoring committee expires, and then we don't have a say-so. And we've seen this movie before. Again, this speaks to the issue of the roller skating rink. This has come the time now where we in the Bronx, the leadership in the Bronx, whenever the city's making a decision here in our borough, we want in on that decision. And so we have taken a leadership role here. We're going to be calling for hearings, and ultimately we want to see some type of, we want to see access. We realize that that there are some safety issues that we have to discuss, but nonetheless we want a say-so, we want a seat at the table, and ultimately some level of access so that people can enjoy the reservoir like they did in the past. I'm
going to give you a fun 60 seconds. I came right at you with every question I could think of. Bronx Week is coming up. I know it's a week of pride for you. Sell it away. Go ahead.
Bronx
What's going
Week
on?
Starts May 12th to May 22nd. We have everything from Senior Citizen Day to a Banker's Breakfast, Business Day. We're with our Youth Day. We end up on the 22nd on Mashulu Parkway, where we're going to have our Bronx Parade. All of the different schools, like we had last year, going to come out and exhibit their school pride with their banners. We're going to have a huge concert. We're going to induct famous Bronxites into our Walk of Fame. And we want everyone to come out. You'll get all of the information at ilovethebronx.com. Go there. Enjoy a week or more than a week of festivities, food, culture, celebrate your Bronx pride. I will see you there.
VX, we get an extra?
Yes, we get the VX.
A sneak preview on who some of the Walk of Fame honorees are? I can't do that. I'm trying.
We got to hold that off.
All right. Okay. Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr., thank you for joining us, and we certainly look forward to the next time.
It's always a pleasure, Gary. Thank you for allowing me once again to be on your show.
Folks, if you have further comments or questions on anything you heard on tonight's show or anything going on in the Bronx, then email them to us at bronxtalk@hotmail.com, and we'll read those on the air during a future edition of our program. Archives of Bronx Talk are available at bronxnet.org. You click Bronx Talk, which is on the right-hand navigation bar. On Monday, May 9th, a subject the borough president will like to hear talk about. We're going to talk about the living wage campaign. Lots of good talk coming up on our show, as always. Special thanks to producer Jane Folloro, our director Antonio Devers, and of course our cast of thousands who are around us in the studio and in the booth. And to you, good night.
This is Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. inviting you and your family to come celebrate Bronx Week. Bronx Week is our annual Bronx Festival showcasing the very best in our borough in the areas of art, culture, food, and entertainment. Bring the family, bring the kids, and join us during this big Bronx celebration. For more information, go to ilovethebronx.com. See you there.